Welcome to the new video, guys. Today I'm going to start a new chapter, that is chapter 4, Animal Kingdom. I'm going to continue in the same sequence, that is reading point to point and then explaining the points. Let us start. When you look around, you will observe different animals with different structures and forms. As over a million species of animals have been described till now, the need of classification becomes all the more important. The classification also helps in assigning a systematic position to newly described species. In introduction part, they are saying the importance of classification. Why classification is important? Classification is important because if a new species is been found, then on the basis of its description, it can be placed under certain groups. Okay, so it is classification is important. Now if we are doing classification, that means we should have a very basic question, that is what is the basis of classification, on what on what characters or on what points you are doing this classification. So it is called as basis of classification. That is what our next subtopic 4.1, basis of classification. In spite of difference in structure and form of different animals, there are fundamental features common to various individuals in relation to arrangement of cells, body symmetry, nature of coelom, pattern of digestive, circulatory or reproductive system. So these are the basis of classification. What are the basis of classification? Arrangement of cell, body symmetry, nature of coelom, okay, and pattern of digestive, circulatory or reproductive system. These features are used as the basis of animal classification and some of them are discussed here. So starting with the first one, that is levels of organization. So level of organization, see, we know all the animals in animal kingdom are multicellular, okay, and in each the very first group is sponges, okay. Sponges are very much different from mammals. Why they are different? There are so many aspects. One of them is like arrangement of cells, okay. In sponges, that is cellular level of organization. That means each and every cell is very much free to do its own function. But in humans, we have organ system level of organization. That means there are organ system like digestive system, excretory system, reproductive system, where number of organs aggregate to form to do one function very correctly. Okay, so that there is various levels of organization. So going through the line, all the members of Animalia are multicellular. All of them do not exhibit the same pattern of organization of cell. As I have said you, all of them are multicellular and all of them do not exhibit the same pattern of organization of cell or arrangement of cell. For example, in sponges, the cells are arranged as loose cell aggregates, that is, they exhibit cellular level of organization. So, number of cell aggregate to form one being, that is sponges, okay, and each and every cell is very much free to do its own activity. Like one cell may be, doing digestion, the other may be doing uh, some other functions, okay. Some division of labor some division of labor occurs among the cells. In coelentrates, the arrangement of cell is more complex. Here, the cell performing the same function are arranged into tissues, hence it is called as tissue level of organization. Okay, this is the very basic. Cellular level of organization is very basic. Then one step forward, we have tissue level of organization, okay, which is a bit complex than cellular level of organization. Here in tissue level of organization, like cells, okay, performing the same function aggregate to form one tissue, okay. So like cell A and cell B are doing same function, that means they aggregate to do the same function, okay, and this aggregation of many cells is called as tissues, okay, and so it is called as tissue level of organization in coelentrates. Coelentrates and also ctenophore also shows tissue level of organization. A still higher level of organization, that is organ level, is exhibited by members of Platyhelminthes and other higher phyla, that may be like Aschelminthes, where tissues are grouped together to form organs, each specialized for a particular function. Okay, in phylums like Platyhelminthes and Aschelminthes, there is organ level of organization. Okay, where tissues are grouped together form an organ. Okay, so one organ is formed by groups of tissues. Okay, and that one organ is specialized to form to do one function. Okay, this is called as organ level of organization. Then comes to the highest level of organization, that is organ system level of organization. In animals like Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, echinoderms, and chordates, organs have associated to form functional systems. Each system concerned with a specific physiological function. This pattern is called as organ system level of organization. Okay, so organs associated to form functional system. Okay, so organs associate, that means aggregate to form one functional system. Like we have digestive system is very much different from excretory system, which is very much different from circulatory system, which is very much different from nervous system, which is very much different from reproductive system. Okay, so these are all the functional systems. Okay, and each system does its own work. It can't see, if you have digestive system, it's only like expert in doing digestion. It can't do excretion, it can't do reproduction. Okay, so this is organ system level of organization, where organs aggregate to or associate, you can't say aggregate, they associate to form functional systems. Each system concerned with a specific physiological functions. See, they are very clear. Specific physiological function. Okay, this pattern is called as organ system level of organization. Organ system is different in different groups of animal exhibit various pattern of complexities. So organ system is different in different groups of animal exhibit various pattern of complexities. So they are explaining this point with an example. For example, the digestive system in Platyhelminthes has one single opening to the outside of the body that serves as both mouth and anus, and hence is called as incomplete digestive system. A complete digestive system has two openings, one is mouth and the other is anus. Okay, so see, digestive system in Platyhelminthes is digestive system, and in humans also it is digestive system. But the difference is that in Platyhelminthes it is incomplete type of digestive system. That means it has only one opening, which serves as both mouth and anus. Okay, but in humans we have two openings, which one act as mouth and the other act as anus. Okay, see, if there is only one opening, it is called as incomplete type of digestive system, and we have two openings, which one is for input and the other is for output, then it is called as complete digestive system. Then in circulatory system also there are two types. Okay, see, by this example you can come to know what the above statement meant. What was the above statement? Organ system is different in different groups of animals exhibit various patterns of complexities. So in Platyhelminthes the complexity was there was only one opening, that is that acts as both mouth and anus. Okay, and then in humans we have complete type of digestive system, which in which we have one mouth and one anus. Then coming to the circulatory system, open type and closed type. Open type, okay, we'll read the point and then I'll explain it. Open type, in which the blood is pumped out of the heart and the cells and the tissues are directly bathed in it and in it. Okay, in open system, see, the heart directly pumps out the blood into the body cavity, where the organs, the cells, the tissues are directly bathed into it. Okay, that means it's like a container of water, and then we are putting some other fruits or vegetables. Here the fruits or vegetables are organs, tissues or cells, and the container is body cavity, and the blood is water. Okay, are you getting the example? If we take a container which acts as the body of organism, okay, and water, if we put water in the container, okay, the water is blood of the animal. And then if we take let us take grapes only. Okay, those are the smallest fruits which I am getting now in my mind. So let us take grapes. If we take 3 to 4 grapes and then put it in the vessel, okay, which are directly bathed into the water. Okay, here grapes represent what? The cells, the tissues or the organs. Are you getting it? This is what? Open type of circulatory system, where the cells, tissues or organs are directly bathed into the blood, okay, which is pumped by heart. Then comes closed type of circulatory system, in which the blood is circulated through a series of vessels of varying diameter, arteries, veins and capillaries. Okay, closed system. Okay, see, open system, you got the idea, right? Closed system, you can, like, it's very I don't know what's the actual word used for it, but like, you can compare with it with the closed tunnels. Okay, closed type of circulatory system is a type of circulatory system in which blood, is carried out in the closed tunnels. Okay, if you take arteries, veins and capillaries as closed tunnels, okay, so blood is carried out through these closed tunnels to the cells, the organs and the tissues. Okay, are you getting it? This is closed type of circulatory system. Let me read the statement. Closed type of circulatory system in which the blood is circulated through series of vessels of varying diameter. See, this is very important again. Okay, they are saying varying diameter. Okay, all of them are not of same diameter, they are of varying diameter, which we will learn in circulatory system. Okay, next, coming to the point, symmetry. In symmetry, the organisms may be asymmetrical, they may be radially symmetrical, or they may be bilaterally symmetrical. So let me read the statement first. Animals can be categorized on the basis of symmetry. Sponges are mostly asymmetrical, that means any plane that is any plane that passes through the center does not divide them into equal halves. Okay, is it clear? See, if you are taking an organism, maybe they have explained over here. Okay, no, they did not explain. Okay, I don't have even a space over here. Okay, this is an organism, say this is a sponge. Okay, where was I? Sorry. Okay, this organism belongs to sponges. Okay, now if I pass a plane, okay, let me say this is a plane, does it divide the organism into two equal halves? No. If I place this as a plane, does this plane divide the organism into two halves? No. None of the planes pass, like, divide the organism into two equal halves. So this organism is called as a symmetrical organism. Okay, next, when when any plane passing through the center of the axis, the body divides the organism into two identical halves, then it is called as radial symmetry. Are you getting it? See, radial symmetry they have given over here. Okay, so this is, maybe I should delete it. Okay, see, here this organism is radially symmetric. See, so if I take this as to be the plane 1, this is the plane 2, okay, and this is the plane 3. Here first plane divides the organism into two halves, the second plane also divides the organism into two halves, and the third plane also divides the organism into two halves. So this kind of organisms are called as radially symmetry. Okay, See, they are saying any plane. Okay, this is very very important. Any plane passing through the center of the axis, okay, of the body divides the organism into two identical halves. They are saying any plane. That means any number of planes. Okay, it may be two or three or four or n number of planes passing through the central axis of the body divides the organism into two halves. Then the organism is called as then the organism shows radial symmetry. Okay, next, coming to the next point, coelentrates, ctenophores and echinoderms have this kind of body plan. Okay, so radial symmetry is shown by coelentrates, ctenophores, echinodermates. Okay, next, coming to animals like annelids, arthropod, etc., where the body can be divided into identical left and right half in one plane exhibit bilateral symmetry. Okay, here like if you divide the word bilateral, bi means two and two, so the word means two laterals are being formed, that means bilateral symmetry. See, here they are showing an organism which shows bilateral symmetry. So here only one plane, that is only one plane divides the organism into two halves. See, if you try to divide the organism like this, let us say this is plane 2, does the organism divides into two equal halves? No. See, here we have this kind of like arms, but here we don't have the same kind of arms, so this is not symmetrical in according to the plane 2, but this organism is symmetrical only according to the plane 1, so this is called as bilateral symmetry. Okay, coming to the next topic, triploblastic or diploblastic organisms, or diploblastic and triploblastic organisms. Animals in which the cells are arranged in two embryonic layers. The external one is called as ectoderm and the internal one is called as endoderm are called as diploblastic. Example, coelentrates. An undifferentiated layer, mesoglia, is present between the ectoderm and endoderm. Okay, so what do you mean by diploblastic? There are two germinal layers. Okay, in embryo, if you come to embryology, you will come to know what are germinal layers and all, but for this point of reference, let us take these are two embryonic layers. Okay, the first one, that means the outer one, is called as ectoderm, and the inner one, the innermost, is called as endoderm. In between ectoderm and endoderm, mesoglia is there. Mesoglia is, it's a gelatinous layer, okay, which is non-cellular. Okay, it is present between endoderm and ectoderm. Okay, this is very important. Mesoglia is present between endoderm and ectoderm. Okay, this is undifferentiated layer. This is an undifferentiated layer. Okay, next, this is what diploblastic. Diploblastic, again splitting the word into two. Diploblast, diploblast, like if you come to the word diploblast, di, that is d, represents two. Okay, bilateral, bi represents two. Okay, diploblast is two layers, that is ectoderm and endoderm. Okay, then coming to triploblast, see, again you can divide this word diploblast and then triploblast. Tri means three, so there are three layers. First one is ectoderm, the other one is endoderm, and here the mesoglia is converted to mesoderm. That means that is the third layer. Actually it is the middle layer, that is the second layer, but you can say it has to be the third layer. So the first one is ectoderm, the second one is mesoderm, and the third one is endoderm. So let us come to the statements. Those animals in which the developing embryo has three germinal layers, mesoderm in between, ectoderm and endoderm, is called as triploblastic animals. Okay, are called as triploblastic animals, as I had explained. First one is the ectoderm. In between ectoderm and endoderm we have mesoderm, and then the last one, or the innermost, is called as endoderm. So this kind of embryonic layers, in which animal has this embryonic layers, those animals are called as triploblastic animals. Examples are platyhelminthes. Okay, sorry. Animals which belong to the group from Platyhelminthes to chordates all show triploblastic all are triploblastic animals. Then coelom. Okay, coelom, it's like a body cavity. Okay, the cavity between the body wall and the gut wall. Okay, so this is called as coelom. Let us go with the statements. Presence or absence of body cavity between the body wall and the gut wall is very important in classification. See, over here, let us take coelomate animals only. See, this is the body wall, and this what you are seeing, the middle one is called as the gut wall. Okay, so this is the gut wall, and this is the body wall. In between gut wall and body wall, we have a cavity. Okay, if this cavity is present, the animals are called as coelomates. If the cavity is not present, the animals are called as acoelomates, as seen in figure C. See, they don't have any body cavity. Okay, but in figure B, like there are some body cavities in between, like they are scattered. Okay, so these are called as pseudocoelomates. That means false coelomate animals. So coming to the statements, the body cavity, sorry, is very important classification. The body cavity which is lined by mesoderm is called as coelom. Okay, the body cavity which is lined by mesoderm is called as coelom. Animals possessing coelom are called as coelomates. See, coelom is present over here. Okay, so these animals have body cavity, and so they are called as coelomates. Okay, the animals possessing coelom are called as coelomates. Example: annelids, molluscans, arthropods, echinodermates. Hemichordata and chordata are also coelomates. In some animals, the body cavity is not lined by mesoderm. Instead, mesoderm is present as scattered pouches in between the ectoderm and the endoderm, as seen in figure B. See, they are in scattered pouches between the ectoderm and the endoderm. Okay, the body cavity, such body cavity is called pseudocoelom, and the animal possessing them are called as pseudocoelomates. Example are Aschelminthes. There is only one example which you need to remember in pseudocoelomates, that is Aschelminthes. Then the animals in which body cavity is absent, totally absent, that means whole mesoderm is present, okay, are called as acoelomates. Example, Platyhelminthes is an example for acoelomates. Then coming to the next topic, segmentation. In some animals, the body is externally and internally divided into segments with a serial repetition of at least some organs. For example, in earthworm, okay, the body shows this pattern called as metameric segmentation. The phenomena is called as metamerism. Okay, see, like in some animals like earthworm, as they have given as example. Okay, in earthworm, if you see, the body is segmented externally and internally. Okay, in some segments, the serial repetition of some organs occur, like like this metamerism, like it's very much dominant in annelida. Okay, if you come to annelida, it will be explained very much clearly over there. So coming to the next topic, next subheading, that is notochord. Notochord is mesodermally derived rod-like structure formed on dorsal side during embryonic development in some animals. This is a very, very, very important point. Notochord is mesodermally derived. Okay, sorry. Mesodermally derived rod-like structure formed on dorsal side during the embryonic development in some animals. Okay, it's rod-like structure derived from mesoderm. Okay, derived from mesoderm. Okay. Next, animals with notochord are called chordates, and those animals which don't have notochord are called as non-chordates. Example, Porifera to echinoderms. Okay, some animals have notochord and some animals don't have notochord. The animals which have notochord are called as chordates, and the animals which don't have notochord are called as non-chordates. Chordates, like the phylum Chordata belongs to which has notochord in them, and all the non-chordates from Porifera to Echinodermata are non-chordates. Okay, so here I end this class. If you like my explanation, please like the video, comment, okay, and share also. Please don't forget to subscribe, and then if you have some questions, please feel free to comment down. Thank you.